Hey, fourth grade. So let's talk about Unit 3 quick practices for grade 4. Now, these are going to stay the same for nearly the entire unit. However, I've made a couple of changes based on what I know about working with fourth graders and the types of algorithms they're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're always going to read the problem aloud. I really don't think that we actually read numbers aloud often enough, and you'll know that because when you have students read an equation, you'll notice they constantly say it backwards. They'll say things like 6 divided by 23, or they won't say the full number correctly. So we're going to always read it out loud together. So boys and girls, read with me. 23 divided by 6, think about it. And we want students to put a thumbs up in their heart box when they're ready, or they can even put their hands right here in the heart box with their answer if they think it's 6 or 4 or 3. The idea is that they're not putting it up in the air, they're not doing anything to cause anxiety of other students who are still thinking about it, still trying to come up with the answer, but they're also not leading students with an answer that allows other kids to not have to think of the answer. Okay, so think about it, and then I would say class, and we want the whole class to say 3. And then I would say, boys and girls, how many will be extra? And they'll think about it. Class, everyone would say 5. So whether you're in person or remote, everyone is participating. So everyone can show their fingers to the camera. Everyone can show, even if you had them put it on a whiteboard and hold it up. That's my least favorite idea because they tend to multitask and draw on it, and they're doing other things. We want the pace to be fast, and writing down a number tends to turn into other activities. Okay, so I like to do thumbs up when you're ready. When I can see that most kids have a thumbs up, I'll give a signal, class, and ideally it'd be a student leader who's giving those signals. And so we would then say, okay, boys and girls, let's say the entire equation. And we would say 6 times 3 equals 18. 23 minus 8 equals 5. And then we go to the next problem. So the first one is, what's the first number in the quotient? Class, 3. Boys and girls, how many will be left over? Class, 5. Now, I've generally just left it there. But you can see on these slide decks, we've made a place where you can put in the entire equation, but that would come later. That would come at the end of what do you know, how many are left over, because we're trying to promote that mental math as they go through this problem. Now, if your students are continuing to struggle with multiplication facts, there's a few things you can do to help them with this. So if they say 3, you could say, okay, let's prove it. Boys and girls, count by 6s. 6, 12, 18. 3 is as far as we can go, because some of us need the rehearsal of doing count bys to know which number this needs to be. So you can add that piece. You can also choose to do today like only the problems that have 6s in them, because you're trying to get better at 6s. You could change the 7s to 6s and the 8s to 6s so that we're only practicing the same fact every time. Okay, so that could help if you have students who are struggling. Then you're going to continue to do that. So you can see that the slides decks change based on the day you're in, and then you get to lesson 4, and now you'll notice that the problems change significantly. So this is the expanded notation, and that's what I highly recommend you keep, that you keep it as the expanded, not the shortcut. Okay, so in this case, you can see that they start to take that shortcut. I just don't think it's necessary, nor do I think it's your standards. Not until 6th grade do they have to do that. So we're going to keep it in expanded to keep and maintain place value understanding. So I would say, boys and girls, think about it. Let's read it together. 342 divided by 6. Boys and girls, think about it. Class, 50. Boys and girls, how many would be left over? Think about it. Class, 42. Let's say the entire equation. 6 times 50 equals 300. 342 minus 300 equals 42. Now, some of them may not be doing this mental math as well, but what you should see is we should not necessarily need to go 2 minus 0 equals 2 and 4 minus 0 equals 4. We don't need to do that. If we just look at the whole number, we know that 342, you take away that 300, you only have 42 left. These are all ways that we're building capacity for mental math and flexibility. Okay, so we're going to keep this as expanded form. We're not going to put it as 30 and put a 5 in the 10 spot. I'm going to wait for that. Now, if you choose to do that, that's up to you. You'll see in the script it has you start to do that. I just think expanded is what's going to maintain the most amount of place value, which ends up looking like this. And we're not remembering placeholders of zeros. I don't think your fourth graders have had enough exposure to this method to start going abstract. And just to remember that we're supposed to put a placeholder here and then they draw the arrow down. It just becomes more about a procedure and less about what the math actually is. So you'll then follow that. You can see that you get all the way into the thousands. So the same thing would happen here. Read it with me. 3,942. Again, it's practicing reading numbers divided by 6. Boys and girls, think about it. And we'd want them to think about what they think that number is going to be. Class 600. Boys and girls, 600. How many is going to be left over? Okay, so that's how we're going to proceed with even into the thousands. So we know that it has to be in the hundreds spot, that this is not a 39, this is 3,900. How many hundreds could I take out? If I take out 600, I'm going to end up with 3,600. How many is going to be left over, everyone? 342. Boys and girls, could we do another step? Yes. So now we know. Now it's not 34, it's 34 tens. How many times can I share 34 tens with 6? Or how many groups of 10 can I take out? And then we could continue to stack. But with quick practice, it's actually not about doing the problems over and over again. That would take too long. Notice this is just the first step in all of the different problems. We're only doing the first step. I hope that helps, my friends. Have fun.